particularly during Viktor Yushchenko's presidency from 2005 to 2010, with the assistance of Ukrainian nationalist historians such as Volodymyr Petrovich, have sought to portray the OUN and its leader, Stepan Bandera, as national heroes. And this effort has involved distancing themselves from the fascist ideologies they embraced, as well as violent crimes and ethnic cleansing for which they were responsible for. In 2010, for example, Viktor Yushchenko, who was president of Ukraine at the time, made Stepan Bandera hero of Ukraine. In 2015, Ukrainian authorities prohibited any public expressions of disrespect towards the OUN, and more recently, in 2018, Bandera's birthday was designated as a national holiday, which continues to be celebrated annually in various cities such as Lvov, with participation from officials and institutions across Ukraine. Additionally, numerous monuments and streets in Ukraine are dedicated to OUN leaders, including Stepan Bandera, Roman Shushkevich, and Evgeny Konovalets. All of these government-sanctioned initiatives aimed at cultivating a positive image of the OUN have led to an increase in the organization's popularity. A survey conducted in 2022 revealed that roughly 80% of Ukrainians consider the OUN-UPA to be freedom fighters, while 74% hold the favorable view of Stepan Bandera. Bandera, as a result, ranks among the most renowned Ukrainians of all time and is regarded as a hero by many Ukrainians, especially in the West. The primary aim of my paper was to confront and dismantle the prevailing Ukrainian nationalist narrative that casts the OUN in a positive light. I contend rather that the OUN was without ambiguity a fascist organization. Its aspirations transcended the goal of liberating the Ukrainian state. It endeavored to construct a fascist Ukraine, one that was to be exclusive domain of ethnic Ukrainians. And in this treacherous pursuit during World War II, the organization systematically tried to eradicate those they considered undesirable, such as Jews and Poles. And it is important for Ukraine to confront this issue and try to distance the country from its dark past related to this organization. Stepan Bandera has to be denounced as a fascist, which he was, and any lingering sympathies for the OUN could jeopardize Ukraine's war efforts, especially potentially alienating Western allies who might hesitate to provide the Ukrainian government with much needed aid. To achieve my objective of showcasing the extent to which the OUN can be classified as a fascist entity, I divide up my paper into three sections, with opening section examining the OUN's founding ideology and its commonalities with fascist ideologies from Italy and Germany, elucidated by analyzing texts produced at three major OUN conferences between 1929 and 1943. The next section will concentrate on the OUN's fascist state building methods, and the final section examines how the OUN military wing carried out the ethnic cleansing of Poles and other non-Ukrainian nationalities in order to realize their fascist vision for Ukraine's future. My research draws upon the studies of two historians, Gregory Shrosalinsky-Lirbek and Alexander Stadiev, concerning the OUN, leveraging their findings from primary sources and insights to offer a detailed and authentic portrayal of the organization. The OUN, as mentioned before, was founded in 1929 in Vienna, and at that time it represented the unification of nationalist groups from Western Ukraine, particularly Galicia. However, in 1940, the organization split into two factions. The OUN-B, led by Stepan Bandera, the younger guy, and the OUN-M, led by Andrei Melnik. Although these factions would attempt to undermine each other throughout their existence, both were undeniably fascist, violent, and anti-Semitic, sharing very similar ideologies. The main difference was that the older generations of the organization supported Melnik, while the younger generation members of the organization supported Bandera and considered him to be much more effective leader. Both collaborated nonetheless with the Nazis during their invasion of the USSR in 1941, but the OUN-M collapsed shortly after the withdrawal of German troops, while the OUN-B continued to struggle against the Soviet regime up until 1950s, managing to form its own military wing, the Ukrainian-centered armies, the UPA. And my research primarily focuses on OUN-B and its leader, Stepan Bandera. OUN aimed to establish an independent Ukrainian state through a national revolution, and the state would play a key role in the formation of Ukrainian society. And the OUN expressed unwavering loyalty to its single leader, Stepan Bandera, very similar to the Nazi Party, and the devotion to Hitler. The Congresses declared the Ukrainian nation is the OUN, and the OUN is the Ukrainian nation, I quote. The ON firmly believed in the need to establish a strong and healthy so-called Ukrainian race. The ON leaders also made no secret of their feelings about the fascist ideology, while it was still popular in Europe. For example, Mykola Stisporsky, one of the ON leaders, perceives the fascist ideology as a perfect way for the oppressed nations, such as Ukrainians, to gain independence. And the ON would not tolerate any dissenting elements in the future Ukrainian state, or ethnic minorities were to be systematically eliminated. This was made clear during the Second Congress, which was held in 1941. All Ukrainians who opposed their ideology were to be exterminated, such as Poles, Jews, and Russians, or assimilated into the Ukrainian nation. The ON also used well-known fascist rituals and symbols, such as red and black flags symbolizing blood and soil, adopted from the Nazi flag, as well as adopting a fascist salute accompanied by the chants of glory to Ukraine, Slava Ukraina, to which the response was glory to the heroes, Heroям Slava. It is also important to note that in 1943 the organization went so-called radical change, but I contend that this change was not radical, as many Ukrainian national historians would argue, but more of a cosmetic change, given the situation which was developing at that time, with the Germans by 1943 already started to withdraw from Ukraine, and after the victory at Stalingrad, the Soviet army advancing in Ukraine. In a deliberate effort to align with the Western democratic ideals, the ON incorporated principles such as freedom of speech, press, and religion, allowed trade unions, and advocated for the treatment of all Ukrainian citizens, regardless of their ethnicity. However, at the same time, they continued to eliminate anyone who opposed their views, systematically targeting national minorities such as Poles and Jews in Western Ukraine, as well as Ukrainians who had a different views, such as democratic Ukrainians, and blaming the anti-Semitism in Ukraine as a loss of healthy way of thinking among the Jews, I quote. Consequently, the ON, to its very end, remained fundamentally a fascist organization. Now, in the second section of my research paper, I examined the ON's vision for Ukraine, which was heavily influenced by fascism and including aspirations for violence, authoritarian governance, and systematic elimination of all those who they deemed undesirable. The ON intended to forge a collective Ukrainian society with no room for individualism, very similar to the societies of Nazi Germany and fascist Italy. They also would start the indoctrination of all Ukrainians from childhood, and in the words of the ON leaders, their aim was to transform Ukrainian society into the nation of fighters and fanatics, the most militant nation in the whole world. Propaganda was to serve as an essential tool for indoctrination, filled with anti-Semitic messages such as a need to wage war against the Muscovite Jews and a strong emphasis of Ukrainian national identity that needed to be defended with all means necessary. In the intricate tapestry of future Ukraine, the ON emerged as the arbiter of permissible thought and expression, wielding its influence to ensure that the only nationalist narrative would be broadcasted through the media. Public assemblies devoid of nationalist fervor, for example, were to be outlawed, and only nationalist elements would be allowed in the future Ukrainian state, leaving no space for those of non-Ukrainian ethnicity. The ON also meticulously categorized the non-Ukrainian population into two distinct groups. These were hostile and friendly. Ethnicities such as Russians, Poles, Jews, and Transcarpathian Russians were denounced as hostile, perceived by the ON as harboring enemies towards their vision, and thus posing a dire threat to Ukraine's future. Conversely, the unnamed minority communities were deemed friendly, with the ON intent on facilitating their repatriation to their ancestral homes. Those classified as hostile, however, would face a fate reminiscent of the Nazis' brutal treatment of the so-called Untermenschen, subhumans subjected to systematic violence and eradication, as the ON sought to purify the national landscape of perceived threats. Like fascist Italy and Nazi Germany, the ON planned to expand also its territorial control to all the places where Ukrainians live and control all the lands and foreign territories, stretching all the way from the Caucasus and the Caspian Sea to the Tisza. The ideology of the ON went beyond mere rhetoric and talk. They translated their plans into action, particularly against ethnic minorities, Jews and Poles. The ON instigated a wave of brutal pogroms, resulting in the horrific deaths of at least 13,000 Jews. Members of the Ukrainian police, acting under the orders of the ON, played a significant role in the genocide in collaboration with their Nazi counterparts. They rounded up Jewish individuals, for example, oversaw their mass executions, apprehended those attempting to flee, and enforced the boundaries of Jewish ghettos. While the ON was complicit in the genocide of Jews, their primary target was not the Jewish population of Western Ukraine, but the primary hostile minority, which was at the time Polish population. The ON aimed to treat Poles in a very similar ways that Hitler treated Jews, intending to systematically eliminate them. In the wake of the brutal pogroms that took place in 1941, the relations between Ukrainian and Polish communities in Western Ukraine grew tense, and it resulted in a violent upheaval by 1943. This surge of conflict was ignited by the Red Army's decisive triumph at Stalingrad, and which emboldened at the same time ON and UPA to seize what they perceived as a critical juncture to resolve the so-called Polish question once and for all. Some historians and nationalists, however, tried to distance the ON from the actions of their military wing, that is UPA, in 1943, to safeguard the ON's reputation. For instance, in 2022, Ukraine's ambassador to Germany, Andriy Melnik, rejected any claims of involvement by Bandera and the ON in the mass killings of ethnic Poles and Jews. Nevertheless, the UPA and the ON had undeniably close connections. For example, the upper ranks of the UPA consisted of ON members, while the lower ranking commanders operated under vigilant oversight of the ON territorial leaders of equivalent ranks. The UPA fighters also pledged their unwavering loyalty to the ON-led supreme political leadership of the Ukrainian people and carried out directives directly issued by the ON. Contrary to the claims of historians such as Petrovich, who attempt to depict the massacres committed by the UPA as a struggle between the Ukrainian nationalists and the Polish partisans, this is not a case. It was a case of ethnic cleansing, with ON and the UPA killing civilians, Polish civilians, that is, and trying to eliminate the Polish population in Western Ukraine altogether. Prominent ON leaders such as Mykola Lebed issued explicit orders to cleanse, I quote, and liquidate the Polish people. The attacks were carried out with harrowing precision, orchestrated by the UPA under the guidance of the ON. And by the end of the campaign, it is estimated that only in Volhynia, in Western Ukraine, between 50,000 and 60,000 Poles died. And the wider context of the war led to the Polish fatalities in Western Ukraine, ranging from all the way from 70,000 to 100,000 people. Additionally, more than 350,000 Poles fled their homes in Western Ukraine, motivated by the threat of violence and persecution. In total, the violent actions of the ON are estimated to have led to deaths of more than 100,000 people, including Poles, Russians, Jews, and Ukrainians. And they would have killed a lot more people if they had gained control over Ukraine as they planned to. Government and its citizens to confront the nation's complex history. The Ukrainian government should acknowledge the ON's connections to fascism and take clear steps to condemn it, similar to what the German government did regarding its Nazi past. Unfortunately, since taking office in 2019, President Zelensky's administration has begun to take such actions, with Zelensky refraining from elevating Banderas to the status of the national hero and instead focusing on the victimization of the Ukrainian nations and events such as Holocaust and Holodomor. His participation, for example, in the Castle Vigil in 2023, alongside the Polish president, to honor the victims of the Volhynia massacre, is a significant act of reconciliation. Additionally, he has also allowed the Polish experts to investigate and exhume the remains of ethnic Poles who were murdered by Ukrainian nationalists in one of the villages during the war, which demonstrates a commitment to the historical truth. To ensure that these efforts have a meaningful impact, the Ukrainian government must continue to address the ON's troubling legacy through coordinated initiatives that also includes formal anti-fascist education and an official condemnation of the ON. Which I believe that Zelensky's administration or the future administrations of Ukraine can definitely accomplish. Thank you for listening. That's it.